Just go ahead and unmute. Okay. Yes. Yep, because I'm worried I'll forget. Thank you. Everybody here.
Big agenda.
We have a lot, yeah.
There's certain number of tables to the
They're all on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
I just have to log in. What's your website?
They do run late sometimes. Just
Oh, is it supposed to?
head out.
I use Safari.
Ready to go. I'm always I'm watching. Yeah, you said it. Right.
There we go. There we go. We do have an amendment to approval for two of the board positions from the rec. And we'll add that under new business as item number 3. That request came in from Matt McClure, the director of Baldwin City Rec. So I move we approve the agenda with the amendment to approve the 2 positions brought forward by the Recreation Commission as item 3 under new business. Is there a second? Second. Susan has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. At this time, I move we enter into executive session to discuss negotiation items for the 21-22 school year pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under COMA, and the open meeting will resume in the PAC at 6:46.
Second.
Chris has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Executive session until 6:46.
Oh, so that.
Sorry, I had to stick you back to the phone.
back into executive session with Mr. Dorothy and Cindy Frick to discuss negotiation items
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yes.
It's just freezing out. It is cold out here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it gets
Well, we'll
colder as
still
I
do
walk.
the announcements. All right, we will call this meeting back to order. At this time, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Floating in space.
Yeah. Oh, it's because.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
Second.
Phil has seconded. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. At this time, we will start with recognitions. We're going to do swim team, a little bit different order than what it says. We'll do swim, tennis, and then track, because that's the order my certificates are already in, and I'll drop them if I start changing them around. But the first recognition we have is for Miss Olivia Kerr. Is she here tonight? There she is. Olivia, would you come forward? And Mr. Stavanis, our athletic director, is going to talk about how we have a swim person at Baldwin High School. He's going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to recognize you for your state swim meet participant award. Mr. Stavanis?
Hey, real briefly, Olivia was our only swimmer this year. Obviously, we don't have a pool or facilities like that, so she approached us a couple of years ago about the possibility of doing a cooperative agreement to swim with an area school. And we were lucky enough to find Topeka Hayden, who was receptive to that idea. So she was going to actually swim last spring, and then COVID hit. So I think she got a couple practices in before everything got shut down. And then Topeka Hayden agreed to it again this year. So Olivia was able to swim through the Activity Association swim program. And kind of how that works, I'm going to go real briefly, but then let her speak on more to it. But Olivia practiced at Topeka Hayden a couple days a week, drove up there, practiced with their team, and then during the regular season, she competed as a member of Topeka Hayden High School. Once the postseason hit, she was now Baldwin High School. So unfortunately, she could not swim on a relay team because she was our only swimmer. But she did qualify for the state meet in 2 events, and I believe was second team all-state, correct? But I will let her speak a little more just kind of about her experience as a cooperative agreement athlete.
So I'm, first of all, very grateful you guys approved that last year. It was awesome. I would do it 1,000 times again. I mean, it was a great season, and I had great coaches with Topeka Hayden. I mean, I'd say I was pretty successful, which was great. Going into Barton, where I'm swimming for the next 2 years in Great Bend. And so, I mean, it was a great experience. I placed in the 200 individual medley and the 100 breaststroke, and I went best times in both of those. So yeah, I just want to say a big thank you again, because you guys approved that 2 years in a row.
Olivia, will you tell everyone what happened on the day that you did that other big event in your life?
Yes, I graduated that day. So I graduated at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and then went to state swimming. I had to be there at 1:30, and I didn't leave till about 8:30 that night. So yeah, it was a very eventful day, but I probably ended my high school career the best I could have ever done.
And she also gave a speech at graduation. So that was a huge day, and you represented your community and yourself so well. So the Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. On this day, June 21st, 2021, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Olivia Kerr for the Acacia State Swim Meet Participant Award. Congratulations. There you go. Congratulations. All right, and now we have tennis. Are Jacob or Steven here? Don't see them. Okay, so Jacob Hoffman and Steven Simpson also qualified for state participation at the tennis meet. They were doubles, and they're not here, but we'll go ahead and read their certificates and give them a round of applause as well. The Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. On this day, June 21st, 2021, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Steven Simpson and Jacob Hoffman as the 4A State Tennis Meet Participant Awards. We can clap for them even though they're not here. Okay, and here's a big stack of track stuff. So if you attended the state track meet, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to come forward, line up, and Coach Ebel's here tonight. Coach, if you would like to say anything, feel free, you don't have to. But if you guys want to go ahead and line up, and I'll read all of them. You just right across the front. That way it can be really super awkward and people can take your picture. We can all stare at you for an extended period of time. Thanks for taking the time to come tonight. Coach Ebel, do you want to share any words?
Yes. This was a really crazy state track meet this year because of COVID. They went to a one-day event, and we didn't like it very much because it was run so very fast and was kind of stressful. But that aside, we definitely maximized the team's potential, both girls and boys. So we were really happy with that. You want to read a name, or you want me to speak to these people here?
Yeah, we can go ahead. I'll read them off. The first one, let's talk about the boys first. We have Drew Schoendaler, who isn't here tonight, but we have Grady McCune, who is here. So we're going to talk about Grady.
Grady took the 5th in the Open 800 and 203. And Grady's the kind of guy that he's not afraid to run in what we call the red zone. He really goes out in that first quarter and hangs on for dear life. But, that's quite an accomplishment to go out there in that class and take 5th in that.
And for the girls, we have, let's see, Drew, let me back up. Drew threw javelin.
Drew
He's
had a
not
heck
here.
of a meet at the regional qualified and took 11th place in the javelin.
Excellent. Other participants included Jana Landreth. She's not here tonight, but she ran steeplechase or hurdles. Excuse me.
It was unique. She ran the 300 hurdles and the mile. I think Coach Pimble said that she was the first individual that would ever qualify in both of those events, and she ended up taking 7th in the mile.
Excellent. Izzy Harvey's here tonight. Let's talk about Izzy, Coach.
Izzy ran the open quarter and took 7th place, and then she was on the 4x4, which took 4th place, and there's 3 other members that were also on that.
And then we have Jewel Marsh, who is not here tonight, but she was a thrower.
She took 6th place in the shot.
And Emily Taylor.
She took 8th place in the distance.
You're doing, man, you didn't even know. I wasn't sure how we were going to do this. Coach Schulman owes you. Riley Schmidt, not Smith, but Schmidt. There you are. Hi, Riley. Oh, no, you're not here. That's Diana. Excuse me. Sorry, lights. Riley Schmidt is not here, right? No. Okay. She was a relay.
Yes, 4x1.
Lily Breckheisen.
She was on 800, had a personal best of 2:30.
It's like unbelievable. You just storms it right here. Bailey Smith.
Bailey ran, there she is. she ran the 2 miles, so she got the experience of going out there and finding out what that's about.
Kasayo Funja?
Pardon?
Kasayo Funja?
Yes, she was in 2 relays. She was in the 4x1 and again on the 4x4, which took 4th.
Reagan Bosch?
Reagan, we had a little snafu. She was supposed to be on a relay and didn't get to happen. We felt bad about that, but she's a competitor.
But all of those qualified to make to state and represented the school. And last but not least, then I've got, so those are all the participant awards. Then we have the last one, which are the champion awards. So we have Amber Stewart, Diana Messick, Carly Neufeld, and Riley Smith. If you want to talk about that, and I'll come in, you guys.
Okay.
step out.
Amber, first of all, Amber's not here, but she had a heck of a career. I think she might have medaled in that event in 4x8 all 4 years, but I know at least three of them. The girls 4x8 has been a traditional power in that event, and we thought that we could win it this year, and they did a heck of a job. We had, like I said, Diana. She ran second leg and blew the race open for us, and that's all she wrote on that one. So that was great to obviously get the state come away with 1 state championship.
All right, so I'm going to read this all at once so we don't read it 25 times. Are you guys okay with that? They're like, yes. The Baldwin City Board of Education of USD 348 supports and promotes excellence in all school activities. On this day, June 21st, 2021, the Board of Education recognizes and congratulates all the Baldwin students who qualified for state and also the 4x8 state championship team. Congratulations.
Can I just say one other thing?
Oh, absolutely.
So a day like Riley, it was a heck of a day. It was Riley's warm up, time to go run, sit down for a half hour. Riley got to warm up, go run. She had to do that 3 times. Heck of a job. She was also on the 4x4. Carly was on both of them, carried out the Neufeld tradition. In the girls 4x4, which took 4th, since 2009, the girls 4x4 has been on the award stand every year. So, congratulations.
So let's give a big round of applause for all of them. Also, knows all of these stats intuitively. It's amazing. Thank you, guys. Congratulations. Are you handshaking or which is your comfortable? Okay. All right. Amber's not here. Miss Diana, congratulations. Good job. Carly, we'll shake first and then hand. Bailey, congratulations. Izzy, she's like, here you go. Riley, casual. And Coach. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Good job, guys. Thank you. And we will get those other certificates to the other kids. All right, public comment time. So at this time, we will invite guests who would like to make public comment to come forward. I did not receive, Megan, can you help me double check? I don't think we have any electric. The only thing I got were like advertisements. So we did get some things, but they were all like advertisements or solicitations or things of that nature. The public comment time is the agenda time for any student, patron, or staff member to have an opportunity to share topics of interest or to just make a comment to the board. This is the only time during the meeting that a person can discuss an item with the board and share their opinion. Generally, the board does not respond to topics shared at this time. Inasmuch as no background had been previously obtained and it is not advisable to address situations without all facts. The board can really only speak when they vote. If a board member responds, it is only that board member's opinion, not the board as a whole. Audience comments can be relative to any agenda item, whether or not they placed it on the agenda, or it may be any topic of their choice. This is not a time to discuss specific personnel or student matters. Audience comments are limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Also, if a delegation of persons comes to discuss a single issue, every attempt should be made to avoid redundancy and have each person state only new facts or new perceptions during their allotted audience time. So at this time, if you have public comment, if you could just state your name, and we'll try to, as an act of hospitality, give a hand when you have 30 seconds left, so you know when it's about up. And then when the 5 minutes has expired, we'll say time has expired. Would anyone like to make public comment tonight? Oh, I saw this lady first. She was already up. You're welcome.
Hi again, Melanie Bernard, your friendly student and bus driver. I had a meeting with Mr. Dorothy today, and I know what his recommendation to the board would be. And I'm just asking you strongly to consider it. It kind of was nice to see the students up here being recognized. They're your students. They're our students. Don't cut us out of that. I know that it seems like you could say, well, we're not really, but if we're not part of the district, we're part of something else, it doesn't feel the same. And they are our students. We care for them. The good news is that I can tell you that we have confirmed we are staffed for route drivers the coming up season. We are working hard on getting people through the door. I can guarantee you First Student isn't staffed for route drivers for any of their locations. And I would say, if you watch the news, even American Airlines are canceling flights 50 to 60 a day because of staffing issues. It's a nationwide problem. But here locally, I think we're going to get the job done for you. So I would just say, please strongly consider his recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. And state your name for the record, please.
My name is Tesley Smith. I came here tonight because I want to compliment the board. Many of you, I'm sure, I probably don't align politically with, and I think that's probably okay. I sit here and listen, whether it be on YouTube or some of the comments, and what I can say is I'm proud of this board. It's a hard situation, and none of us have lived through a pandemic. I've heard a lot of erroneous claims here saying that you don't want this or you don't want this, which hasn't been true. I've done my research. And what I'm most proud is the character that you've shown. And again, the discourse is great. That's how countries become great. But the way we act and the way we work together in front of this is probably the most important thing that we can do. And it's what our children see, and it's what our children hear. So, the second component is that I want to use this forum not only to represent that, but to say what I've heard. I know a lot of teachers in other areas. I actually spoke to a county attorney just across out of our county. And he said, I've been really impressed with your board. You've been consistent. Even if you don't agree with it, I know a lot of board members, there's probably times that they don't agree, but they've said, hey, we're going to be consistent because of CDC guidelines or certain things, or we love bus drivers, but we can't fill the positions. And the work that goes in, the late nights that I know that people are on the phones, and it's impressive to me. And again, if I disagree with a policy or something, which is quite often, it's not always easy for me, but I know you want to do the right thing. But I do have one request from the board, and I will challenge each of you, and including you, Paul. I think for all of us in the last few meetings I've seen, there's been what I would say is personal attacks. I don't think there's a room for that. There's a disagreement, and I don't think we should bring children or anything into it. So my challenge would be for all of us, if it comes to this, and I've read some bylaws, that we stop at them. And if it's discourse or disagreement, which I have, and I usually voice them when I can, but to do it in a professional way, not let personal attacks. I challenge each of you. If it happens, stop it. Then we move forward and we do things professional and courteous. We don't need to be politicians. We've seen how bad they messed that up. But what we can do is be one big community, work together, and trust each other. So that's all I had. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
All right. I am Marie Taylor, and I'm here to inform the school board that the community of Baldwin City does not want critical race theory ideas taught in our schools. Two things are needed before I can continue and are unfortunately necessary when discussing critical race theory. I don't care what color your skin is. Skin color is irrelevant, completely and entirely irrelevant. I care about your character. I care about your actions, your values, and how you treat people. These are things that have been American ideas and American values for generations. The ideas of critical race theory are in direct opposition to these values. Secondly, and briefly, because I don't have enough time, I need to answer the question of what critical race theory is. For anyone who doesn't already know, CRT is not some fringe idea or philosophy. It is now in the mainstream. Believe it or not, it's already being taught in some capacity in our high school here in Baldwin. Teachers of critical race theory have decided that being multiculturalist, pluralistic, colorblind society is actually a racist thing. You see, critical race theory is a Marxist class struggle, upgraded by Herbert Makosa and Angela Davies, who somehow convinced enough people that in everything in life, whether you realize it or not, is a power struggle. That you're in a fight, and the oppressor versus the oppressed, that nothing else really matters except that. There's no beauty, no truth, no pursuit of justice, there's no meritocracy, no freedom, no liberty, nothing else. It's a tribal war. We're all either oppressed or the oppressor. At the top of the oppressor ladder is the white Anglo-Saxon Christian, preferably Protestant man. Now, there's no evidence to support this. There's no clinical data. There's no scientific data, no empirical data, but that doesn't stop them because the second thing they believe is that there is no science. It's true. They believe science and mathematics is a construct of white supremacy. Speaking clearly, the scientific method, being on time, working hard, and playing by the rules, these are all constructs of a white supremacist country. That is what critical race theory teaches. It believes that racism is everywhere. It's like the air. There's nowhere you can go, nothing you can touch, nothing you can do that is not in fact impacted, polluted, or stained by the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male. I don't believe you here on the board want any of these things I just described above. In fact, I bet you're shocked to learn it's already being taught here. Previously, we've been told that we out here in the auditorium are the minority. So I'm submitting a petition that rejects critical race theory signed by 129 community members to show that I'm not standing up here alone, representing my own views. These signatures, they say that they're standing up here too with me, requesting to reject critical race theory in Baldwin. And trust me, I didn't even try that hard. So here's what you as a school board need to know. No, teachers, they don't have lessons entitled critical race theory, and they don't say, okay, kids, open your critical race theory textbooks now. But the idea that white kids are privileged, black and brown kids are oppressed, and America was founded on racism is still a systemically racist country today is critical race theory. So you need to understand that. You need to hear, when you hear terms that sound great, like equality, equity, inclusion, social justice, and anti-racism, but defining a person's character and attributes by their skin, by the color of their skin is the definition of racism. Critical race theory inhibits unity by segregating students into groups based on race and skin color. It advocates for assigning levels of privilege and oppression to students, therefore creating animosity from perceived oppressors and the false sense of entitlement from the oppressed. Critical race theory teaches children that the color of their skin is more important than the content of their character. So today I don't stand here alone with the signatures of these community members who say, we don't want the ideas of critical race theory taught in our schools. No, I'm not asking for a vote or anything today, but I'm bringing it to your attention that this is already happening in high school, whether you know it or not. You as the school board need to know this is happening, and as our elected representatives should know how the community feels about it. So in parting, I leave you with a question. Can you describe the difference between equality and equity? Equality is equal opportunity. Equity is equal outcome. Equal outcome requires discrimination of someone. Someone has to be held back so that the result of everyone's activity is equal. So someone will be discriminated against based on an immutable characteristic. So my question is, which one do you want for the school, equality or equity? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment tonight?
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mike Kennedy, two students in the school district here. I want to thank Marie for expounding on critical race theory. My wife and I are two people that found that position. I'd like to present my words tonight to those here and those watching, not necessarily the board. Across America over the past several years, we've seen hyper-acceleration of far-left ideology in our media and our education system, in our local, state, national government agencies, and our corporate human resources departments. We've known for the better part of 25 years that our universities have been overemphasizing progressive ideology in humanity-based courses, taking opportunity to recast history or tailor reading assignments and required English or sociology prerequisites. They've done this to a capital audience devoid of their parents. They've carefully done this in order to influence college students who really lack life experience and nuanced perspective that comes with it, turning them into social justice warriors with the purpose of executing political endpoints in the guise of writing past mistakes of an imperfect society by exacting retribution on the present society. Like an army, these SJWs have encamped themselves in every public entity now, including our K-12 public education system. My wife and I, having raised our kids in California up until 2 years ago, witnessed firsthand how their efforts have pressed to corrupt parental and faith-based moral teaching through sexualizing our children at a young age. They openly worn their politics on their sleeves, whether it came to telling kids to have their parents to vote yes for a tax increase to support schools, fawning over the election of Obama, or denigrating those who supported Trump. They even campaigned for their causes in front of school property in the hour before school started. But like the weather and the rivers on this side of the continental divide, the sewage of West Coast far-left ideology polluting our education system is flowing east into Kansas, into our small town of Baldwin City. Since we moved to Kansas, my wife and I have continued to look to the West to understand that what they're working on next. And as you've heard and smelled, this thing is all about quote, systemic racism in America, critical race theory. It starts by this board approving an elective on diversity and inclusion, which is a gateway method introducing political ideology under a seemingly innocent banner. When a student learns about diversity, they will inevitably learn that those who don't elevate diversity above merits are quote racists. My parents' generation, the 30s to the 60s, the term racist was commonly associated with Southern segregationists and secretive white wearing gangs who brutalized and murdered others on the color of their skin. Being raised in the Northeast, I can assure you that these racists were not people my parents ever taught me to side with. In my youth, from the 70s and into the 90s, I understood through the media that racists and white supremacists were those tattooing themselves with swastikas and shaving their heads, openly carrying out verbal and physical assaults on any non-white or non-heterosexual person. That being said, I can't actually say I ever met or encountered one of these white supremacists in my K-12 college years. What I did encounter is the concept of personally value my relationship with the person on the content of their character. However, over the past 20 years, the far left has latched on to several important concepts to aid with their political objectives. First, for those at the top, this is not about actually fighting specific cases of racial injustice, but in creating a specter of pervasive racism to create divide in our country, deflect from their own failed policies, and achieve the end goal of American Marxism. Second, they learn that labeling somebody a racist or more recently a white supremacist exacts guilty until proven innocent reaction, more costly to the accused than being labeled a murderer. The book White Fragility, published in 2018 and apparently introduced during part of Baldwin High School English class in the recent school year, goes a step further. It brings the concept of our nation as being systemically racist. And if you are white, you are likely a racist. Further, if you reject the concept you are racist, you're expressing weakness, not admit it. Indeed, it presents a philosophy that racism is not a matter of bad people doing bad things to others. Rather, it is their theory that pervasive in the very culture of what we value. Ironically, the labeling of a person based on their skin color, as they do with white fragility, is racist. What would they claim makes us systemically racist? Well, last year, the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture displayed a poster entitled Aspects and Assumptions of Whiteness and White Culture in the United States. Among the attributes of white culture is rugged individualism, including being valued and rewarded for independence and autonomy, and being personally responsible for your
Time has
actions.
expired. It's 5:09.
I'll finish. Family structure, as in a nuclear family consisting of family, mother, and children. emphasis of the scientific method, work ethic,
You have
justice,
5
and
minutes.
communication.
If you're here till midnight, so let's follow that.
We need to follow the rules, and we could do it again next meeting, and you could pick right back up, or
I'll conclude this to the audience then.
it's important that
Be
we
on the lookout
follow
for
the
this in our
rules.
schools.
If we're not gonna follow the rules, this is
This
exactly what we're
fall,
talking
in the
about.
process of selecting
All right,
strong
at this
support.
time, is there any other public comment? Any other public comment from the audience? Any other public comment from the audience? It is 7:30. Cindy, what is the legal, for the budget hearing? Okay, so we'll have to pause. By law, we have to do the budget hearing at 7:30, and then you'll be next, okay? That was the quacking you heard. I set my alarm so I wouldn't forget.
Okay, at this time, we have our budget hearing for the budget amendment for the career and post-secondary education. Does anyone have a public comment on that? And if not, then I just need your permission to approve the budget as amended.
I move that we approve the budget as amended.
Second.
Carrie has moved and Chris has seconded to approve the budget amendment as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No one's opposed. Motion carries 7-0. So we'll pause for that, and then we will now circle back to public comment.
Hello. All right, my name is Carrie Barth, and I am a parent that lives here in Baldwin City, Kansas. I have 2 teenage daughters. And Tess, I'm going to continue a little bit on my consistency here because I've spoken at several of these board meetings. I really just want to say, I just want things, my consistency is the same message as that. I just want to make sure school goes back to normal. I know we keep saying that it's supposed to, but I really, really mean it. My kids have not been inside our school building with 5 days continuous learning. It wasn't even an option for high schoolers. It is extremely important that we actually do what we say, which is excellence in education. So I also want to make sure that we're not putting masks on our children. I recently found there was a study down in Florida that spoke to how dangerous these masks are that kids wore after a school day. They were full of pneumonia and all other types of bacteria and contaminants that are extremely concerning, and not a single one of them had a speck of COVID on it. They even took a shirt from one of these children, and it had none of those same contaminants the mask had on it. So if our kids are breathing this every single day, all day, that has got to be the worst thing for their health is that mask. I'm gonna try to be brief today and try not to speak for 5 minutes. I'm also gonna be consistent with continuing what Ron Peterson has stated this entire time since the pandemic started. And that is really around the CDC and what it's stating. So I pulled today's stats and honor Bronze, who's no longer going to be going to Baldwin School District with his children. So the CDC states that it is only 0.1% chance of children dying of COVID-19. COVID-19 is not even in the top 10 reasons that children are dying. So I think that there's enough evidence here that our children are safe. There is a new section in the, the agenda called public comment policy. I don't have any idea what it's about. I just want to state that I want to make sure that our American rights and freedom of speech is still maintained. So hopefully that's not something that's trying to limit our public comment. I know that prior to the pandemic, things that was a tad different. So I'm assuming that we're just trying to go back to what we did prior, and we're trying to be normal. So I wanted to address that we're not limiting folks. I do want to speak on the critical race theory. I have to admit, I had no idea what it was a month ago. How I missed it, and maybe you've all missed it too, that it's been happening underneath our noses, even here in Baldwin and across the country. I've seen now multiple videos, YouTube things, you name it, talking about critical race theory. And it's Black people standing up and speaking against it. It's white people, it's Hispanic people. It is people, I think this is something we can all get on board with. This is something, if you have children, if you have grandchildren, if you have no children, but you care about kids, which I think all of us here in this room do care about our children in this district, then critical race theory is something that's really divides to separate people. It is to point out the color of your skin, and it's to point out if you are a skin color that's not white, you're an oppressed. Who wants to be called an oppressed person? If you are a white person, you are an oppressor. I don't know any of us that want to be called an oppressor. I was raised that you were judged by your character, not the color of your skin. Martin Luther King also said that. We even honor his day, he said June 19th. I think we're ready to tell the country, like, let's move past this. Let's not put in these Marxist ideas. You know, I had a class in college that was on consumer behavior, and it had some things around the Marxist things taught to us as well. It is a critical level of thinking type of manner. It is an idea only. The way of possibly doing things. I think here in the United States of America, if you really believe in where you're at and living, then you will probably pronounce this. I just mentioned it because if it ever does come across your radar, I just want to make sure that you know the public does not want it in our schools. And that's basically all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to make public comment?
Yes, I'm sure. Hi, I'm Kayla Thomas. I don't live in the district, but I have kids that have graduated here, grandkids, a daughter-in-law, and I have two in the school right now. One is in high school, one's in the, what is that? Not the elementary, she'll be in 4th grade. Anyway, my two youngest are mixed children. I'm in agreement with the critical race theory problems that we are having here. Another thing I wanted to talk about, as Carrie suggested, the mask mandate. As someone with health problems, I have 5 different types of asthma. And I have COPD. In September, 11 of us from our family got COVID. I was the worst. I got into the hospital for 3 days, and I had respiratory failure. And I'm this way now. You would think I would be someone who would want mask. I do not. It's hard to breathe in these masks. It's hard just to catch your breath. If you're walking and you have a lung disease of some type, you're just inhaling your own spit, basically, the droplets in the air. As Carrie said, there was a study done, and there were 6 masks. In Florida, they did the study. They found that with 3 of the masks infected, there were dangerous pathogenic and pneumonia-causing bacteria. Not only pneumonia, but tuberculosis, meningitis, sepsis, food poisoning from E. coli, because after the kids eat, they're going to put those masks back on. Half of them won't wash their face or brush their teeth. They'll have food particles, it'll go in there. Diphtheria, Lyme disease, and even UTI are some of the problems that are found in this. You can look on the internet, you will find several issues of that. Am I missing?
I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry.
Anyway, you will find several articles from Fox News, from the Yahoo, from Christianity Daily. To me, critical race theory is keeping our kids
from being able to use their voices, use their freedom. And I would like to see us not do that. I don't want my granddaughters thinking they are oppressed because of the color of their skin. I want them to know that they are smart, intelligent young women who can go out and fight for their positions that they want in this world. And I don't want any child to feel left out. I have a friend who has the critical race theory in her granddaughter's school. Her granddaughter came home thinking she was wrong because they told her she was oppressing minority children, that she was white. White privilege. There's no such thing as white privilege. You're rich, maybe. I'm not white privileged. I grew up with a father who was a coal miner. To me, that's not white privilege, you know, or somebody who's white privileged. So I just like the board to consider this critical race theory. I do know my oldest or my only grandson had an issue with a teacher in the high school where it was all about you were not allowed to disagree with her and her political point of view. It's wrong. Let's do better for our kids. Let's make their lives a little bit easier and a whole lot better. Thank you.
Kaylin, I want to apologize to you for my alarm going off. That was for the budget hearing, and I didn't turn it all the way off, so I apologize about that. Is there anyone else who would like to give public comment? Okay. And nothing else came in the meantime with electronic public comment, so I think we're ready to move forward with the financial report. We've already done the budget amendment, so we'll continue on with number 2 there. Cindy, thank you.
Okay, final bills and transfers. We are coming upon our year end of June 30th. And so we would like your permission to go ahead and pay expenses as we can before the end of the fiscal year. That will get them off the books. Typically, we wait for the July board meeting to cut the next batch of checks. We also may have, if there's any funds left, we would transfer them to the special education fund or the textbook fund. So if we could have your permission to do both of those things.
I'm sorry, permission to do both those things? Is that what you said?
Yeah. The year-end bill payments and any final transfers.
That's what I thought you said, but.
Yeah.
Do you need a motion?
Please.
I move that we transfer, how do you want it worded?
Yeah, approve final bills and transfers is fine.
I move that we. do that. Sorry, I should.
Second.
Carrie moved and Andy has seconded that we approve the final bills and transfers as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Purchasing card.
Yeah, we are looking at a purchasing card program, which would replace our current credit card. And the benefit, we would like to go more to electronic processing of payments, less checks, envelopes, stamps, and all that. And hopefully streamline our process a little bit. This would also make it easier for the schools, people out in buildings to be able to make some of the purchases they need the credit cards for. And so there is a 1% cash rebate on this that would be paid monthly. We don't have any programs available here in town, but we did, Argus Bank in Ottawa has a good program and they sponsor Kasp, our business officers group. And so are there any questions on that before we ask for approval? Okay. So we would like to go ahead and use Argus Bank's purchasing card program, and I would need to be have the authority to sign on behalf of the district to proceed with that.
So moved. Excuse, second.
Susan has moved and Carrie has seconded that we approve the new purchasing card agreement as presented with Cindy as the signatory on behalf of the district. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Capital outlay.
Okay, capital outlay, there is a spreadsheet on board docs. But just let me go over some of the highlights. What we have now is our proposed plan for next year. We're running a little late this year and bringing this to you. So, but at this point, we're not asking for approval. We're just going to talk about it and get your feedback, if that's okay. And so the special projects that we have this year would include maker spaces at the high school library, working on the bell and intercom systems at one or several of the schools, depending on how far we get. We are looking at replacing the phone system district-wide. Activity-wise, we have high school volleyball standards and a curtain. The junior high gym, is currently getting the acoustical panels. And if we needed any change to our speaker system, once that is finalized, we reserved about $30,000 for that, not knowing if we'll even need it at all. We do have a junior high walk-in freezer and cooler that needs replaced. It's at the end of its useful life. The tennis courts does need some work yet this summer to be playable for next year. And then the recommendation to improve the courts in the long term is a $300,000 to $500,000 project. So we put that out a few years. At this point, between HVAC units at the IC and the junior high, and roof replacements at the warehouse and later on the junior high, we're in a cash flow deficit 4 years from now. And so what we're talking about mainly is the project we're looking at for 21-22, but just giving you a heads up that we can't do everything within the budget that we have right now. We also have resurfacing of the track, I believe, Gary. Is that right? The track? No, I'm sorry. It's one of the gym floors. One of the gym floors. Yeah. And then the track is about 3 years out. We do have the normal rotations of flooring, concrete work, asphalt work, bus rotations, vehicles, and then equipment and furniture purchases for the schools and the various departments. So if you have a chance to look at that, I guess, over the next month and shoot me any ideas or concerns, we can make any adjustments as you guys would like. Any thoughts right now on what those might be? Yeah.
Is that on? Nope.
I don't think so.
Better? Man. What about now? Nothing. Okay. Here. Does that work? Okay. We got 3 mics now. Okay.
You can give me that one back.
This is not that good of a question either, which is disappointing.
That's why PAC mics are on the list here.
Oh, so that is actually a good point because we have PAC mics on the list because of some FAA regulatory, Mr. Dorothy, am I even saying?
That's easy.
Thank you. But that may not, that is a separate topic than our word mics and our setup right here. So we also have like a $20,000 number, which may be too high, to figure out what to do with you all now that we don't need our 6-foot spacing and such. And it would, if you wanted to consider getting tables that have the modesty panel, you know, like we typically would on a stage, something like that. So we can figure that out. But it may include extra mics as well. Okay.
All right. Now, the much awaited question here. So I noticed there's some HVAC improvements on this upcoming year. Will any of those qualify for using some of that COVID ESSERS money, or is it more like mechanical, ducts and that kind of stuff?
Units that are meeting, the end of their useful life, and we just got to replace them.
Okay.
So since it doesn't have, like our Ionizer project that we did a year ago, if we had psychically been able to tell all of the rules and regulations, we could have made it qualify, because it improved the air quality specifically. So as far as I know, that's not going to work, but we'll keep that on the radar. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you would just review those thoughts in the next month and let me know if you want to change anything before we ask for approval at the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Last one, ESSER 2 funds.
Yeah, Gianna is going to join me. We're going to talk about kind of the same topics that we've been over the last couple meetings, but with the background on the needs assessment.
Okay, so the document that we shared with you is kind of like a roadmap. We wanted to provide some data about here's where we're at, and then this is some proposed solutions of where we want to go, and that's kind of our whole child education. So the academics, the behavior, the social, emotional, everything we need to do to support children at school. So I provided kind of a data overview, but I'm going to jump over that section and get to the graphs, because it's basically what it talks about. That's the fun part, right? The data. So we'll jump into the graphs. Now, this is a district overview. So this is like that 20,000 foot view. Some of the things that we've done over the past year have worked really well for some of our families, some of our students. There's been lots of little individual pockets of success. But when we look at this as a whole, we're going to look at some of the academic and social emotional gaps that we have and how we want to address that with the ESSER 2 funding. So the first piece is the Kansas Assessment Program. So this is the assessment, the annual assessment taken every year. It's taken in the spring. This past year, we had a 92.9% participation rate. So typically we have a 95% and above. So we did not get all of our students to come back in and take this test. The goal, and this is a state goal based on federal rules, is to have 75% of our students or more being at proficient, which would be a level 3 or a level 4. We are actually dipping down on this. We are not going in the direction that we need to go. So our science scores, we have 41% of our students that achieved a level 3 or level 4, 35% in ELA, and 28% in math. So we're kind of on the downhill slide. We had started a plan 2 years ago on how we're going to do this incrementally and get to that 75% or more. And this is kind of just reset those benchmarks for us. So now we just have greater jumps to get to. With that, the graphs below that just show the percentage of students in each of the different levels. And you can see that red bar, that's our level 2. Level 2 seems to be getting higher, and that's kind of a basic understanding, the basic proficiency, but not considered proficient in that subject. So I know one could argue that that's one test on one day, and in some cases, our secondary students actually took both of their tests on one day because they came in one day, instructional day, to knock it all out. So they took one content area in the morning, one content area in the afternoon. Maybe not best practice, but what we needed to do just to get students tested this last year. And so we can look at the MAP test as well. And so that's just another data point, also looking at academic achievement. And in this, we tested our students in the spring, so in May. And the first little chart shows the percentage of students tested. And that's important because we did test more students at the elementary level. We just had more access to the remote students. We were able to do remote testing with them where the students would log in and have 2 different devices. They had a dedicated teacher that was supporting that. So there were some things there that helped us get higher percentages of students tested for math. And so when I gave you kind of the data summary, I grouped it together by primary center, intermediate center, and junior high. And you can see at the primary center, there were 96% tested, but 54% were at grade level for reading, and 68% were at grade level for math. And our goal is always that by the end of the year, after we've had teacher influence and all of our curriculum and all of the support and resources that we have, we would hope we would have 100% of our kids at grade level. But this is just showing that we didn't quite make that this year. So we're at the intermediate center, 86% were tested, 62% were at grade level for reading, and 58% for math. Junior high, we had a few less students tested, so 65% of the students were tested there, and 48% are proficient in reading and or on grade level reading, and 60% at math. Now, you might be looking at the graph and say, but high school ELA, we're doing awesome. So we have 78% saying they're on grade level, but we only tested 31% of our kids there. So we don't know on the other 60% where they fall as being on grade level or not. So it's kind of an outlier, but I went ahead and included it because we did test that group. We only tested an ELA at the high school level. So again, that's just one more test. It's usually done 3 times a year, looking at growth and looking at the metrics to see if kids are on grade level or not. So then we looked at Lexia. And Lexia is a software program used for reading support science of reading. And we're using that K through 5, started that in March of 2020. So students were kind of on their own taking it. Here's a diagnostic test to see what you can do, kind of kept them learning that continuous learning plan. And then we continued it through this last year. So we had kids go ahead and take that diagnostic test again to kind of put them at their level where they were at, and then work through the school year. And at the end of the school year, we still had 42% of our students not working in grade level material. Also, Lexia is showing that 77% of our kids were at risk for not meeting their grade level standards by the end of the year. So one more just different way of looking at it, that, there are some academic gaps that we need to be making up. If we jump over to social emotional, we have the Kansas Communities That Care survey, and that is anonymous. The students take that in 6th grade, 8th grade, 10th grade, and 12th grade. Again, we didn't get a high percentage of students that took that this year. Some of that was just the remote, the challenge of hybrid, just everything. Usually we're up in like an 80 or 90% participation rate. It was 72%. And we took it the end of January. So we're trying to get past that winter break time. And at that time, students reported substances they had used within the past 30 days. And our highest ones were beer, wine, and hard liquor. It's the top one. And that was at 9% of our students reported they had used that sometime within the past 30 days. Binge drinking and marijuana were our top 3. This is very similar. I know Chris and I were on a call the other day, and they were showing some of the statewide data. We're very similar to the statewide data. For Kansas, it's showing beer, wine, and hard liquor as number 1 at 11%. Vaping was 7%, and binge drinking was 6%. So we're close. I mean, what we're seeing is very similar to what's happening across the state. The next graph shows how often did you enjoy being at school? And this is the students that answered they never enjoy being at school. And 9% of our students said they don't enjoy being at school. So never enjoy being at school. And that's gone up since last year. We did take the same survey last year in 2020. So it would be January of 2020 before everything shut down, before everything happened. So we're looking at some decent data there. And then the other one is how often did you feel sad or hopeless so much that you stopped doing some of your regular activities? And we have 37% of our students that reported they were sad or hopeless. And that is 11% over what was reported in January of 2020. So that's kind of the where we're at. That's the harsh reality of everything. So we do have some suggestions in academics and health and mental health and ways that we can kind of start working toward solutions for this. So in academics, we talked about summer school. We're doing the summer enrichment now. We actually have 179 students that committed to that. I know attendance is a little bit different. You have to ask the principals on that. I know not everyone that committed is actually showing up, but we had 179 committed. 44% of those were remote learners at some point throughout this year. So either just fall, maybe just spring, maybe just April on. It just kind of varies, but at some point they were a remote learner in our system. We suggested some curriculum subscriptions. That is to continue using Lexia, and then RAS Plus was another one we used at the elementary level. Really works on the phonics and beginning reading skills. We also want some other curriculum materials that support the structured literacy pieces. Those are also those beginning reading, beginning sounds, things that we don't have any of the decodable books and some of the resources that we would need to really support kids with that. We're suggesting secondary at-risk teachers. Those would be teachers that would support kids on the core academic areas during the school day, more of a, like an elective class at the schedule, like a Bulldog Academy. Students would come in and get the additional help. So it would be like a tier 2, tier 3 resource. And we do have classrooms available. They can work in those. Tutoring is one that we're suggesting and kind of putting a mix on this because we started thinking about it. Tutoring works for some of our kids. So some of our kids are able to come in after school. We have the teachers there. They get their extra help that they need. But some of our kids go to their sports practices or go to their ball games or they go to their job and then they come home and they have their dinner and they kind of relax for a little bit, chill out a little bit. And then they may hop back online to get their homework done, maybe about 9, 10 o'clock, maybe later than that, based on some of the remote learning logs we've seen. So what we're suggesting is maybe trying out some online tutoring solutions. And I put a couple examples there of some that we've talked to with a couple different options where it's like a per seat license. We can buy so many seats for our students, or just a subscription license and we buy so many hours. Kids log in, use those hours, and then we just kind of reimburse that account. So we always have hours that kids can get to that. Both of these have safety protocols in place, so things are recorded, so kids can have access to those recordings, but also we have auditing access, and we also have reporting that comes back to us, so we can see who's actually, how many students are actually using this, is this a good service or not. I just thought that might be something a little bit alternative to what we've done that might support students where they're at and when they're trying to get that help. Because it doesn't help at 10 p.m. when I'm stuck on this math problem and can't get any help. So we're suggesting that a health aid, like what we've used this year, continuing that support, PPE and sanitizing equipment. For mental health and wellness, we'd like to do the second step digital curriculum. Right now we have some older notebooks that have been purchased, probably 7 years ago or so. The digital curriculum has been updated so it addresses some of the things that students have experienced through the pandemic, but it also would provide access to our students who are at home. So should we have to be at home at some point, so the digital subscription would allow them to keep going with the second step curriculum. And we're proposing that as a K-8 solution. Also to add 2 additional social workers. So for the secondary schools, of course, a resource for all of our schools, but house at the secondary schools, and they have locations where we can house those. Some teacher professional development, having teachers come in for either workshops or like a little mini conference, kind of a jumpstart back to school, some additional training day, and then technology for iPads and the cases. So the last image there is that, we put some things on here that may or may not work. We don't know, but we know it's probably not a straight line to get from point A to point B, and it's probably going to look pretty messy in the process. So that's probably our implementation of that.
I like those proposed solutions and really appreciate the graphic. It's very true. I would, knowing you, Jana, you've already thought this through. It's not necessarily on the template, but just really having an idea of how we know whether those will work. Just some sort of plan for how are we going to measure whether it works. But I know you've already thought that through. I'm just putting it out there.
Yes, that will be part of the plan. I think that's part of the ESSER reporting, isn't it? Because we have to have those measurements in there. So yes, we will have that.
No? Gosh, dang it.
This one works.
You're tricky. Okay. So I agree with Susan. I really appreciate the comprehensive nature of all these different proposed solutions here. The one question I have is related to the secondary, actually it's a two-part question here. Secondary at-risk teachers. So I'm assuming they need to be certified in, 6 to 12 or whatever, right? But does it have to be specific content area teachers, or how does that licensure work for that designation?
I looked at this, I hope I'm quoting it correctly, but I think it's a certified license at that grade level. I think in any content area. I believe what the licensed personnel report says.
So they could be PE certified, 7th grade or whatever, but then be covering academic interventions. Okay.
Yes.
So follow up to that question then, is it possible that we change the terminology that's assigned to that position rather than calling it an at-risk teacher? We have I don't want to be pedantic here on this request here, but if we have it more as a support teacher or a whole child support teacher, something on those lines, to where we kind of rethink that they're kind of comprehensively serving that student and not just the at-risk kids.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, thank you.
You just get it out. That's the worst feeling in the world. I've had that happen before, usually like in church or something, or like trying to choke.
Just tough it out.
I know, that's so uncomfortable. And the more you try not to, the more you want to cough. I have a question about how this interfaces with special education. I mean, I'm sure it's embedded, it's implied, but if we could talk about that just a little bit.
So actually, the software programs that we're looking at, so RazKids, Lexia, Second Step, all of those would be used with our special education students and supports them. Lexia has been highly reviewed by our special ed teachers, so they are okay with that. And in fact, RazKids we use for the resource room, and then also our special ed teachers at the primary center have been asking for that one.
Okay.
So, yes.
Good to know. Thank you. I knew there was an answer. I just wanted to ask. Does anyone else have questions about this? Mr. Dorothy, anything you want to add?
So I'm here to present this tonight, proposal to Hvac tonight, and once you have concerns with this, we're about ready to submit the application to KSDE. Remember, this has to go through 2 different approval processes. First, it has to go to KSDE, and they have a committee that has to go through and approve these expenditures through ESSER 2 before we could get any funding for it. The second thing then has to happen is the State Board of Education has to approve this plan. So it's highly possible we send this in and they have questions about some part of it. As much as we tried very hard to make this fit those 15 different criteria, they will then let us know that we'll have a chance to redo it and then resubmit it back to them. But our hope here is to submit this proposal by the end of the month.
So do you need a motion to do that? Okay.
Not necessarily.
No, you don't need a motion
We don't.
to submit it.
Not necessarily. You
I'd
guys-
put one in there, but
Okay.
if you say we don't need it, then we
No,
don't need it.
let's put a motion in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to make that. I'll make that motion, but I wanted to say that I really appreciate all the data on here, because I think that's really shows I don't want to use the word failure, but it shows the impact of this past year's academic year on the kids. Just from an academic standpoint, the trailing away of what had been a pretty nice trend upwards. The one that's really concerning to me is the one that talks about percentage that are sad or hopeless, almost every day for 2 weeks, being like a third. To me, I think it's wonderful that all the stuff on here, I think is all great. And I'm 100% for everything you're doing. But I think that my takeaway from that is that what we do this next year, as we're starting to think about that, and as we're all doing that, what we did last year didn't work. And so I think that, whatever we decide to do this year, as things unfold, it has to be something different. We did the best I think we could with what we had. But I think that this is, painfully obvious that what we did, it was not adequate, I guess would be. I don't know what we could have done differently, really. But I want to make sure we do differently.
And that's a good point, Phil. And if you look at that data, we had a really nice downtrend on that. We ran into this past year and that jump. And most certainly not hugely surprising. But most certainly, we've got to get back after it, which is why we're asking for more of the social workers to support that along with the support teachers to help with the classes and such, because that becomes a frustration and such for the kids. So.
Cindy, you have that motion right now. How you want it?
I just wanted to add really quick too, that I happen to have statistics across the state on that, and it is very consistent across the state. 5 percentage points increased about feelings of depression. So just consistent with the state is what we're seeing.
So I'll make a motion that we move.
Motion to approve the SRT plan as discussed.
I motion to approve the SR2 plan as discussed.
Second.
I just was looking that direction. All right, Phil has moved and Andy has seconded, just because I saw him first, to approve the SR2 funding application as presented and discussed. All those in favor of approving, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Cindy and Jana, for all the work on that. Administrative reports, strategic planning.
Yes, first I'd like to introduce Michael Toots, who works for Greenbush, and they're the consortium, the education consortium up in the Lawrence area. Michael is the board chose Michael to lead the plan for this coming year. And so Michael is here tonight to kind of start with the beginning step of that. Well, second step of that. First step is meet with me. Second step now is to meet with the board about how that process might work for the steps that are involved in that. So Michael.
Good evening. Thank you for the time tonight. Thank you for everything that you do for the students and for your community. I wanted to just take a moment to share with you what we will go through together and what Greenbush will help to facilitate to help in the development of your next strategic plan. So I had some help this evening by getting paper copies around to you that we can look at. You can ask questions, and I'll provide you kind of a high-level overview of some of the steps that we'll take moving forward. And then I also, in that packet, wanted to provide you with some examples of a sample survey that we could use or work from and customize to make it exactly what you want. Likewise, a sample final plan for a particular district, Erie County, who we are just wrapping up. So I wanted to provide that to you. As Mr. Dorothy mentioned, we met within the last month just to talk about kind of the overarching goals, timeline, process, which leads me here tonight. And I should say really quick that Greenbush is an education service center, just in case you're wondering who we are and what we do. We are in our 45th year of providing support and services to all districts in the state of Kansas, from purchasing thousands of pencils to doing strategic planning to providing professional development. We do it all for and with school districts and have been doing so for about 45 years. If you look on the strategic planning process document there, the next thing that will come up for us to work on together is the development of some target areas. So what are the big umbrella items that as a board and as a community, we want to move forward to improve, to solve, or both, okay? And we can do that a few ways. If there are some ideas already, we can start from those and through surveys, get feedback on those target areas. The other way we can do that is survey students and staff and community first and see what themes may be developed from that. And those themes can become our target areas. So there's a few ways to work through that. And as we have a follow-up opportunity to visit later, we will be able to determine what way might work best for you. Okay. Within that as well, the board will determine where along the way do you want to know how things are going. We do strategic planning all across the state with a variety of districts, and in some cases, boards will say, just bring it to us when we're done. We'll take a look, we'll ask some questions. There are other boards that want to see along the way, what were the survey results? How does that inform the target areas that we have? What action steps have come out of that? So together too, we'll be able to determine at what points do we want to check in, see where we're at with things and see what questions you may have. Part of this process will be developing surveys. Again, I've included an example of one that we've done recently. One of the more fun parts of this process is developing the questions and the open-ended items that we will ask students and staff and community to help inform the target areas and action steps of your plan. And so we'll get to that when we have an opportunity to meet again in a work session. We will also then bring back some of those action steps to the community, make sure that everyone's voice was heard, that what they said in the surveys matches or is articulated clearly in the action steps and in the target areas. We'll talk about the processes by which you want to approve that plan once it's complete. And then we typically try to say that we're helping you build a 5-year strategic plan. What we would like to do and where we typically like to lead districts is down the first 3 years pretty specifically. And then after the first year, add details to year 4. Once in a while, there's a pandemic and things get put off. And so we don't want to forget what people said was important. And as we develop those priorities as a board and as a community, it's okay if we have to put some things off, but what we don't want to do is build out a 5-year plan that's lockstep and doesn't have flexibility. So that would be a point that we would come back and either move some items, add some items. We know that things change pretty constantly in education. We also want to make sure that your community is aware of the progress in the strategic plan. And so one of the recommendations that I'll be able to help step you through is creating a dashboard or kind of an accountability view of your strategic plan. We can use color coding like red, yellow, and green, indicating of those action steps that are determined. What have we not started yet? What is in process and what have we completed? Someone mentioned earlier about kind of that evaluation factor. We also want to build that into the plan. How will we know when it's complete so that we can say with pride that we completed that? Likewise as well, one of the things Greenbush will do is check in at least annually, go back over that plan with the board, the community, the administrative team, however we determine that would be most appropriate, and make sure that everyone's on the same page with where we are, where we want to be, and that path to get there. So that's just a very brief and general overview of the process that I'll help to facilitate. Very excited and proud to be able to do that with you. Also, again, a few examples are attached, just a sample strategic plan that has the target areas and action steps outlined, which is typically where I'll take you on this process. And I'll work with your administrators to develop the who and when and what makes that successful. And then also, again, just a sample survey, but we will make that survey exactly what you want and what you want to ask your community, your staff, and your students. So with that, I can recap anything or answer any questions that you have about that process that we'll start together here shortly.
Thank you, Michael. That's a very comprehensive overview. Appreciate that. Knowing that we have to be mindful of our community, of Baldwin City, and what our kids need, but also of the state board goals. Do you just organically embed that within your process? Do we have to remain mindful of those state board goals also, or how does that?
You bet. One of the worst things that we can do together is develop a plan that sits in isolation of larger and broader goals. And so education loves acronyms. You've probably heard of KISA or the accreditation process. So we definitely want to make sure that there's alignment there. But what KISA accreditation doesn't account for is more local pieces like facilities, those types of things, right? And so definitely one of the things Greenbush will keep at the forefront as we work with you, because we're so connected to things like ESSER and again, all the acronyms, KISA, et cetera. That's where I will help as a facilitator make sure that even if we're not in alignment, that we know why we're in alignment and we're heading this direction for a reason, even if there are broader, bigger landscape pieces in Kansas. So absolutely easy answer to your questions, yes.
Perfect, thank you. Any more questions?
I have a question related to what Susan said. So part of the reason why we chose the timing of this, we wanted to start on it earlier, but then decided last year was not the right time. But because we wanted it to be in alignment with where we are at in our cycle with KISA. We have our 2 Rs that we are using now, and in terms of how that affects things currently. But the timing of that, when does that reset? So it's kind of a 2-part question.
So the KISA cycle next year is our 5th year, so we will reset that. But at the same time, it's considered 0 years for the next cycle,
right,
which will begin the year after next, which makes this a good time for us to go through this and see what's going to fit into that. So that timing works well.
So just to verify, both can sort of inform the other.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It will be a 2-for-1 situation where as we do this for the benefit of the local good, we can then use that as well to inform the broader, larger KISA process. Sometimes districts get to a place where they go, oh yeah, we need to now do both of these. And then it's survey city and everyone gets the survey fatigue. We want to make sure that we do the survey once, we do it well, and we do it right. And that's something that we'll do together. Absolutely.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so do you have everything you need from us for right now?
I do, and I think
All right.
the next time I'll see you is in some type of work session where we'll begin talking about the target areas, just conceptually, what are some things we're thinking about, and that will help to inform some of the survey work that we develop. So look forward to that opportunity to meet with you again.
Fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to be here
Thank you.
tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, next, under administrative report, is the educational program highlight.
I'm back. I made a note to bring water next time. So one of the things that became really clear to us during this past year is just how much more our schools are for our families and our students than just the academic piece of that. I know our social workers deal with that on an individual, working with students and families all the time, but we do have one unique program at the high school that Autumn's going to share with us this month for educational program highlight, and that's the needs closet. Autumn.
Hi, I'm Autumn Weiss. I'm one of the counselors at the high school. And in the fall of 2018, Sydney Novotny and I started the Needs Closet. It was started with BEF CARES money and personal contributions. And we started it with the mindset of just trying to be able to fulfill some needs that students had. Maybe they missed breakfast that morning, so we wanted to have something for them to be able to quickly grab. Hygiene products are big. So that's what got us started on this. Later that semester, we've been very blessed that we're in a very giving community. And Warden United Methodist Church took a love offering for us. They wanted to first pay off negative lunch balances. And so I worked with Shar Hannon and we did that first. And then we were able to keep the rest of the money to continue to purchase things like hygiene products. We buy new underwear, socks, bras, lots of hygiene products, like I said. And then Sydney and I joined a group that had formed called Healthy Food for All. That group really promotes trying to get fresh, healthy food to places that may not be able to get it regularly. So through that, we were, through a grant that was written through that organization, we were given a refrigerator. So we now have a refrigerator in our needs closet. And through that organization, we also work with Just Food. And we are able to go there and we go probably at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. And we are able to get food that we can then not only help some classrooms to have like some granola bars or some quick snacks for when kids don't have something to eat. This year, I don't think it was as needed because we were able to have free breakfast and free lunch, but we still had some snack things like that. But we also have been able to help some of our families in the community by sending home some meals, and they also have provided us with some thermal bags. So we're able to pack up some meals. I think there's probably a bigger need than what we're aware of because we don't always, people don't always come to us and say, this is what I need. So the word is out there though. We've also, like I said, been blessed in other ways besides Warden United Methodist Church. We have people that just say, I heard you have this, I want to help out. So we get lots of donations of clothes that girls in school have just said, I outgrew these or whatever, and they'll bring them into us. So we have clothing that way. We've been given school supplies from churches, from Walmart. We continue to get food from Just Food, things like that. So trying to see if there's anything I forgot. I don't think so. Do you have any questions about the needs closet? So the social workers, a lot of times something will come out when they're talking to them, or if they're in with me and we're doing, we're just discussing things, how things are at home. And we'll ask, do you have enough to eat at home, or can we help you in some way? I mean, I had a student come to me one time because she didn't have a bra to wear, so we went to Dollar General and got that for her. So it really comes about in that way, but the word has spread. We try not to like advertise it because for a long time we had limited supplies. Now we have much better supply. But so word of mouth, kids will come in and say, I didn't have anything for breakfast this morning, can I get something? Or now we even, because of Just Food, we've had enough that we've been able to just put out a little tray with some snacks, some grab and go stuff so that they can come in. They don't have to ask us, they can just anonymously take it. And then they don't have to worry about putting something out there that they don't want to.
Typically, how many students are still in this program in years' time?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure in a year's time. We do submit data to Just Food. I would say that we serve between 5 and 10 families every month by sending meals home and things like that. And then I would guess that we are probably, between all the different things that we give out, we probably touch between 30 and 50 students a month. And it might be the same students. I would say a lot with the food, we see a lot of the same students, but with the hygiene, especially feminine hygiene products, we see a big range. We did have an event last year, Girls Night Out, and it was a free event, but we asked for donations of hygiene products, and that filled our closet pretty well too. So we do things like that.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Awesome.
I'm going to say that they will take donations, so you're going to get a whole lot of mice at the high school or Mr. Birmingham, either one of them.
Thank you for being here tonight too. And you know, sort of off topic, but related to the educational program highlight, I know it's an administrative report, but I almost feel like it could be part of recognitions. Something to think about, because this is the time where each month we are intentional about, we have to keep it real about the things that aren't working and how to fix it, but it's also important to shine a light on the things that are serving our students really well. And so it's something for you guys to think about, if that would be appropriate to maybe include that in recognition moving forward. Just a thought. Okay, moving on to the 21-22 calendar change.
Okay, if you look at the calendar change, if you remember, last month, the board approved to move the President's Day, not actually move President's Day, but change the day from the 14th to the 21st, which is the correct date in February. So we did that, but the part we forgot, I forgot, was that we really need to move the days that are on the 10th and 11th, which are normal class schedule and parent-teacher conferences for EHS and EHS. And February 11th, no school teachers do not report, and move those down to the 17th and 18th. Those should have all moved at one time. So I'm asking if the board would follow up and approve to move those dates to the 17th and 18th of February.
I move that we approve the amended calendar.
There a second?
Second.
All right, Carrie has moved that we amend the calendar as presented. Chris has seconded. All those in favor of the 21-22 calendar change, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Handbooks.
Okay, I move the handbooks were put into the board. Not sure if we got all of those in at the last minute there, but we had handbooks from several. The first, has the board had a chance to kind of review through those and look at those. I think they try and mark changes in that for you so that you can see the difference in those. If you have, I guess I would ask if the board, one, if you have any discussion items or questions on those. Two, if you're good with it, we can improve them, or we can put it off and we can improve them next month. Since they become digital, we don't have the printing crunch that we used to have years ago, where we had given approved so early because this was printing time and so on. But so I'll give the board questions.
Did you say some were put in at the last minute?
Well, I don't know.
Oh.
Some got into it. That's what I was. I know some of them were in there, but I don't know how many got into the last minute.
I didn't put any in at the last minute.
Okay.
There are several that are not in there at all, but none were put in last minute.
Okay.
Full disclosure here, I have not had an opportunity to look at them, and I don't foresee any issues or problems with them, but I would like to have an opportunity to peruse them if it's not a problem to approve them at the next meeting.
We can do that, and most certainly that would give time for the others to get their hands in also. And then some of them have more work on them than the others. Some were able to submit them almost immediately, some had more things they needed to work on.
Okay, well, let's wait on that, if you guys are all okay, until July, or, yeah, the July meeting. Okay, next, KASB policy updates.
As you know, each year, the Kansas Association of School Board works twice a year, comes out with recommendations on changes or policies in our the district's policy handbook. Those usually have something to do with a change in the law. Some kind of legislative session goes through to change the law, change policy, or a federal law may change, and we have to change policy. So at this particular one, I believe there were 9 policies that came in this packet that was very, very thick, with this said, but at the same time, it only ended up being 9 policies, just 1 or 2 of the policies are like 20 or 30 pages long. So I provided recommendations on those. There's a couple of those that maybe want to discuss, because some of them, you'll see that most of them I'm saying to approve the revised policy or adopt the revised policy. I believe there was
Food service one.
Food service one.
the food service one that we might not want to do that. Basically, what it is saying, and they're not saying that you have to adopt this. They're saying if you wanted to do this, put policy in that allow the district to deliver meals on, say, a snow day, that we could deliver meals that day. As superintendent, I have a problem with that in the fact that I don't think we should be asking our cooks or drivers to go out on the day when we call school off and said it's not safe to have school, But we're gonna go ahead and send these employees out on the road to deliver meals around the district. So I'm not in favor of that, of having those meals those days. I say there are kids that need the meals. The vice versa is, well, couldn't we offer it and just have them come to school? Well, we just be feeding purpose on school Sunday if we're gonna ask families to come to the building. So my recommendation is not to adopt this policy. I'm not saying it does leave it open for you to do that as part of what the policy is, but I guess I don't see a way in which it would be a good thing on, say, weather day or whatever to provide meals.
Does anyone have discussion about the recommendations for the updates?
As far as the food plan, we never have before, right?
We have not.
Has everyone had a chance to review, and do those need to be done tonight?
If the board wanted to hold off, then it might have to be done tonight. They could wait till the July meeting.
What's the comfort level for you guys on that? Is it like the handbook thing, would you want more time to review, or are you in a position you feel ready to recommend?
I'm fine, but yeah.
I'm looking for a motion to approve as recommended.
Yeah.
Appropriate?
As recommended.
That's what I'm doing.
As recommended by the superintendent for myself.
Right. Which outlines each one, yeah.
Yeah, with the food, with the food recommendation, not in there.
Okay, so did you just move that?
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Andy has moved and Tony has seconded that we approve the policy updates as recommended. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. All right, full business, transportation.
Okay, I think that there was some discussion at the board's special meeting on the 3rd about transportation and the process that we had looked at what the service might look like for the district. So certainly at that time, we did not know what exactly that would look like or how much that would cost. So in between time, they wrote us a quote. That quote is significantly higher than what it's costing us now to do run our program, to the tune of over $200,000 more to run that program. They did make some adjustments, but still could not break the $200,000 mark. So it is over $200,000. So certainly right now our district is not in a position to do that. So my recommendation would be to stick with where we're at. One couple of things that I want to say on that, I want Chris Locke to go ahead and come on up here. Probably some of our biggest concern has been trying to find drivers. Has been a challenge. Most certainly we've done a few things to try and deal with that. I talked with Melanie Bernard today, came to see me. The drivers have gotten together cooperatively and collaboratively to work on some ideas on how we might recruit new drivers. And I think they came up with some great ideas. Melanie and I talked about that today and how we think that work. Chris just has some information that she's going to share with you about where we stand for this coming year. So I want Chris to go ahead and present that. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. So where we currently stand with transportation is, at the moment, we do have enough drivers to cover our routes. That is the priority. We would like more car route drivers, and we have advertised that. just recently. So I would like 2 more car drivers. That would put us in a very comfortable position in regards to the car drivers. At the end of the year, we did lose 1 full-time car driver unexpectedly, and then also 1 substitute CDL driver. Again, we're continuing to work on advertising or promoting ourselves, trying to get drivers. So along with that, we're reaching out to the community in many ways, such as flyers, through the local paper, social media, and so on. I am currently working with two leads for potential CDL drivers. We will see where that goes. So that is positive. And that's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Any questions, Chris?
I do. I mean, when I think it was was it 3 years ago, and we went through a whole bunch of different iterations about things we could do to get new drivers. Are there any things that we can do as a board to facilitate your efforts? I mean, is there something that, I think at the time we talked about pay raises, we talked about insurance, we talked about a whole lot of different options. And I mean,
I think one thing that we discussed at that time, and Melanie and I talked about it today, is the possibility of providing some sort of bonus of some kind to a driver, that recruited driver who will stick with us for at least a certain period of time, say 6 months. That is one thing we could add that really is not a huge cost, but a good incentive for us as drivers to see if they can get somebody else to come in and work with us. The good thing about car drivers, which is the regular route drivers have to have the CDL to drive. Car drivers, van drivers, just have to have a license and a good driving record in order to drive those routes. So it does help, but then they don't have to go through all that classes and hours of driving to get the CDL. So that's helpful. But that was one thing that we discussed. We talked about some recruiting and drivers being involved with that recruiting. They came up with a good point that many times people don't want to do this because of this vision in their head of what they think bus driving is, with 50 people behind you doing things, and you're trying to pay attention to it. And it is a difficult job. But I do think the drivers can talk to people about, hey, here's how this works, and this might not be as bad as you think it is. And most certainly could be our best recruiters. So I think we're going to do some more of that. My recommendation is that we stay in-house, that we get advertised for a permanent director, or director as long as they'll stay for us, but a director of transportation, and then start working on the recruiting for in the district, because it's ready for this law.
is that the $200,000 price discrepancy with first student being that much more expensive than keeping it in-house? Is that considering the salary of that director also, or is that like because you don't have a director right now? Is that added in?
That would be
in addition to.
That would be part. That's in addition to having a director in place. Yes.
I mean, that means that then, I mean, that we can put a little bit of money into trying to get a full staff of drivers and still be ahead of the game versus going to first student.
Yes. I mean, that's a possibility for the board. Yes.
So one idea for recruitment might be, and maybe you've tried this, the colleges, because they have CDLs for their bus drivers. I know Ottawa does, and I can check with our drivers, but we have about 8 CDLs that drive the buses for the teams. And so they're mostly retired people who don't have full-time jobs. So they do, just when a team needs to go, or they're just called in for random, just contract drivers. So I can check with our school And it might be worth checking with Baker. I don't know. I checked with them once and I never followed up because I didn't get any feedback, but I can check again and
I think that's a great
see.
idea.
So, because they have that open time. So, and they have the CDL. So,
And we'd be more than willing to work with them on their hours,
so
whatever's comfortable for them.
yeah, so it's worth a shot. I'll check with Ottawa and then maybe check with Baker and, it's worth a shot maybe.
Absolutely it is. Yes.
And I think you guys would be a fun group to work with.
We are a fun group to work with.
Mr. Dorothy, was the idea, I didn't catch part of that. Is it like a referral bonus? So it's not just a bonus to the driver, but the person who recruited them? Is that the idea?
That's correct.
That was the idea.
If one of our present drivers
Right.
gets a new driver, toss them into the start, they could receive
Yeah.
a bonus for that if they stay for a certain period of time.
I thought
And
that's
certainly
what you
we need to
said.
work out the details.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk that through.
I thought we had a policy like that.
We talked about it, but I don't think that.
We never put into place. Okay.
We never came to complete it.
Okay.
We authorized it, but it didn't happen.
Okay.
So let's make it happen.
Okay.
Because it was a good idea and it gets the people who know the job best.
Yeah.
Being the base of the awesome things that come about with bus driving. Okay. So there's no action we really need to take then,
No,
right?
because
we're just,
you would only have to take action if we're gonna
we're
make
making a
switch.
change.
So we can stick with what we have and go forward from here.
Everyone we're on the same page? Okay. All right. And staying as is and proceeding with the development of the plans that you all are still working on and talking about. Thank you for being willing to speak with us tonight. All right. Ionizer update.
Yes. As you all know, in the fall, the school district was trying to find some ways to purify air in the buildings to help us with the whole virus pandemic thing. One of the things that was brought to the board was purchasing ionizers and putting those in the buildings. And what we were told at that time was that the ionizers were being used by medical facilities in order to clean their air and at these clean rooms so they could stop the spread of infection. So we looked into that and went to one of the companies that made these, that had one that met the national UL certification. With that, Willardton, if you recall, the local engineering up here in Florence is the one that helped us make that decision. In late May, they were contacted about a class action suit on those ionizers. Most of that has to do with that they were supposedly giving false claims about what ionizers could do. Okay. So with that, and under Wilden's advice, we went through the district and shut every single one of them off, just to be cautious. And we will not turn them back on until we've had some testing or resolution. That testing, we believe, can be done later this month or early July, and we would get data from that so the board could make a decision on how you go forward with that. Most certainly, and so part of this is we've got a letter we sent out to staff and parents, so they're all well aware of this. And know what we've got going there. But most certainly we'll do this testing and we'll see where we go moving forward. Does anyone have questions on this problem?
I just have
go ahead.
I just have a clarifying, I don't know if it's a question or a statement or what, but there's no mention in the lawsuit of the ionizer being unhealthy. We're just turning them off because they are just ineffective,
That's what the class action suit is saying, basically.
That they're ineffective,
That
but
it's
not that
not
they're
doing
unhelpful.
the effect that you would want it to be. And it's not giving them what it's supposed to. Most certainly the company, of course, refutes that.
Right.
And they provide all sorts of information about that. Most certainly that will go through the whole law, and who knows how long that will take. That's why we want to do some testing of our own to see if that's true. So.
That was my question.
Any other questions about
Anything
that?
else on that?
Okay, it's 8:49. Can we take a quick restroom break? Yeah. So let's resume at 8:55. So about a 5 or 6 minute recess. Come back. I know, I thought I was recognizing.
Ran into Will. That's what he said. I said. It's like off the shirt. It's off the shirt. Pictures of it. Yeah, he's out of control. But he did, they, like Case said, everything's closed and nothing to do except sit in the parent house, watch a movie, like couldn't go to the gym. Couldn't sit watch movies and eat. And he did, he gained about 30 pounds. Yeah. It was like and we were, in my house is pretty cool. And just eating them and stuff. And then
Warm up jumping jacks.
And he's like that.
And this is after I've been keeping my hands and putting on. I've been trying.
I'm just like, what is, oh, that's where Riley was.
She
sitting.
came straight from work, so.
I couldn't tell she was at work. The bathroom, I guess, was like,
Yeah.
wet here.
No, she went from the point to that. Straight to
Just
work.
really was.
Yeah.
Got it.
Would have been on video.
You've gotten a few of those, Andy. Oh.
So I was played baseball and I was so the other day, we came up with like.
Did I?
One of our.
Yeah, you're gonna laugh. We'll do. That's why I was asking.
Yeah,
I'm almost always warm, and tonight is challenging me. I somehow thought I'd be warm in here. I don't know what I was thinking.
I'm happy that it's on the table at least.
This is like the only person in the movie theater cold.
All right, it's 8:55, so we will call this meeting back to order. Thank you for indulging the brief recess there. So we can come in back into this part fresh. We have new business now, and first up on that is athletic facilities.
Yes, this evening, there have been requested that we take a look at the athletic facilities, specifically track, football field, stadium. And so with that, we have Mark Pascal and Brian, okay, are here from Man Athletics, doing presentations so the board can get an idea of what something like this would be. So, how do you guys want to start?
First of all, thank you guys for the opportunity to be here. We have put together a packet for you guys, and I'll briefly walk through it. Obviously, a lot of times there's a lot of questions when we start talking about athletic facilities, those investments. What we did was really dove into getting you guys a cost estimate for a couple different options of what it would look like based on some of the feedback and the requests that we got from some of your staff. So again, this is it's a pretty strong numbers that give you a really good idea, but this is not a quote, this is not a bid. These are opinions of probable costs. So I always like to state that as we go in and have these beginning conversations. Mammoth Sports Construction, just briefly, we're a family-owned, Kansas-owned company out of Meriden, Kansas. We have done fields at K-State and KU and Mizzou and the Atlanta Falcons and the Detroit Lions. So it's really neat. Our passion, though, are small Kansas communities. One of the points that was made earlier, actually, that I want to hit on, being a father of 6, there's a great study in the 2019 American Academy of Pediatrics on the benefits of sports for youth and adolescents with depression and health benefits. It's a great read. I'll make sure when we forward that to you, Mr. Superintendent. It's just really talking about the benefits of team sports. And so anytime we go into the communities, we get to see the impact that facilities have on the pride of a community, of the impact in participation numbers, the increase in those. So we get to see the good side on the back end. Going into it, though, a lot of the conversations, we like to just help educate, give the information, give the numbers, not try to sell, not try to push, but really just be an advocate for the students and the community and each of you just to make the best decision. Because I know that all of your passions are to do what's best for the kids as well. So we'll kind of jump into just some of the information. If you turn to the introduction, gives a brief history of Mammoth, again, family-owned, Kansas-owned, talks about some of the projects that we have done. Again, Ohio State, Michigan State, but then Ottawa University will be installing the new fields at Baker. We're doing We did Rossville and St. Mary's and Marysville and Abilene. So a lot of Kansas communities as well, which again are the passion and really the backbone of who we are as a company. The big projects are kind of sexy to talk about, but we get to see the thousands of kids that are impacted through over a period of years. We're a proud partner with Greenbush. I know that Greenbush was here. Almost all of the projects that we do through the Greenbush Cooperative. It allows what we kind of think about as safety for our partners. So they know exactly what they're getting. They're able to work with a reputable company. We highly recommend talking to all of the superintendents that we have worked with, school board presidents, school board members. That's really how we have built our reputation. So we included just some of the Greenbush information, as a lot of our Kansas partners have gone that route, and it just helps with the decision-making process. Running into section 2, and again, please stop me if you guys have any questions whatsoever. I'm gonna kind of go quickly, as I know there's a lot of information, and this is just kind of an entry. Hey, here you guys kind of go, some costs to look at. But we basically broke it down into 2 options. Option A is with a ticketing structure, horizontal construction, so the field, installing the track, bleachers, and football lights. That would be on the west side of the school. So basically a brand new build would be in that land on the west side of the school. This option B is doing the same thing, but it would be tearing out where the track is now, tearing that out and basically building in a new track and then the complex on that part of the land. So you can see that if you turn to page 12, kind of some renderings there. Again, very high level, just looking at kind of some of the spatial elements, what would fit where. Obviously, once we get involved with our partners, the schematics and the renderings get way more detailed. But again, this is just something that we're providing you guys, just some high level information. So if you go to page 13, always boils down to price. You just kind of take it, we broke it down just so you guys have a line item by line item look at, again, estimate of probable costs. I always like to compare it to a dial. There's always things that you can dial in and make a little bit cheaper. You can dial out and make it a little bit more expensive. So I think we all know, if you've ever built a house or bought a house, your door finishes can be different. They can be a little bit more expensive. They can be cheaper. Your turf system can be more expensive. It can be a little bit cheaper. Your trap can be more expensive or cheaper. But this gives you a pretty good rough idea of some of the facilities that we have built recently in this area and kind of the average cost. So broken out on that, what that would look like, again, going on that west side of the building. And then it's also shown with the blue track. Blue tracks cost more than red tracks or black tracks. So we also listed that price as an ad. We firmly believe in operating under the guaranteed maximum price element. Once we go to our school districts, we do not believe in change orders unless there's something that is impossible for either side to have known going in. And so we like to go in with an understanding of, hey, here's what you guys are going to pay for this project. And that gives the school board a knowledge as they're making a decision as they're moving forward. So we point out all of those additional costs, and we really line item them out with full transparency, so you guys would know, hey, this is a way to save money, or yeah, we really love blue, we want to make sure to have the blue track, or even a blue field, which you can do if you want to, like Boise State. So any questions on A and kind of what that looks like, and just the high level budgetary estimate cost?
Well, I do. Have you been out there and actually looked at that? Because there's a pretty significant drop off. That's all manageable.
Yeah, so we had our architects and engineers look at it. Everything that you're seeing, they feel like it can be done. Again, there's gonna be some things that we would have to do. So we have not run a survey. We have not done soil borings. There's a number of things that to finalize that hard cost. So again, we really stress that this is kind of an estimate of probable cost. There are some things in construction that until you get underneath and tear the dirt up, or we do all those tests until we know for absolute certain, but this will give you a pretty good rough idea. But it is taking that in consideration with what knowledge we do have.
And the physical spaces there east to west. I mean, it looks like basically the back, I guess would be the home stadium, is almost on the building.
Pretty
and
close.
the east side is basically on that sidewalk. So I mean, you're using every inch of that space to fit that in.
Correct. And one of the benefits was that I believe it's able to use existing locker rooms too. from the building. So that was one of the reasons of looking at putting it that way, was to keep that price down and utilize existing spaces. Option B would be building those spaces new. So, but it is very tight, but it's manageable. And that's with an 8-lane track. We do recommend anytime you're looking at a new facility, I'd say almost every single time, people never regret having a full competition track because now you can host meets. Oftentimes they do regret not having an 8-lane track. And so anytime it's a new construction build or just a new project, we always recommend if you have the space, go ahead and make that investment because you kind of will regret it down the line if you don't.
And you know, all the pictures, I mean, I guess this is the option B picture. It looks like it has soccer field painted on option A. I didn't see that, but I mean, it's certainly a multi-use field, right?
Correct. Yeah. It's just, again, just kind of very rough renderings. All the field design elements, logos, where they go, soccer lines and lacrosse lines, football lines, how you want your field to look. Those are all same price. It's just kind of a design element that you guys would have input on once you get into that. But yeah, multi-purpose fields could be used for soccer and obviously football. We're also seeing a lot of other sports that are utilizing them. A lot of PE usage as probably we often will tell school boards this becomes your largest classroom because now instead of a grass field that if it's raining, kids aren't able to be on it for a week. These kids literally are using it all days of the school hour. When we go do site visits or maintenance and those types of things, we are always seeing kids from all age groups out there playing. So that's something to take into consideration too. It's not just a football field or a soccer field. And then also the other elements of playability on like Saturday for youth soccer. You can also put lines in, tick mark lines where you can go in and paint with removable paint. You can make a couple of youth soccer fields inside of a football field. So again, it's maximizing the usage of these facilities to impact all of the kids in the community is always a pretty smart way to go. And turf allows you to do that. We started as a natural grass company. We still do natural grass fields. Again, we're not here to push turf or the other, just talk about what we see the benefits of and opposed to. But the trend is definitely in the state of Kansas and across the country going to artificial turf for a couple of reasons. One, playability. So you have a junior high football game you can play out there. You have a JV football game you can play. Band can practice out there. Soccer can use it. JV soccer can use it. You can practice on it. And then on Saturday, you can have youth football out there. We typically see the cost for play. I know that you guys rent right now. But the cost of play, even on practice fields, is about $40,000 a year. Once you take in mowing, irrigation, fungicides, herbicides, chalk, and especially in some of the smaller communities where farming is pretty prevalent with crop rotation and those types of things, we're really starting to see a turn towards artificial turf because of irrigation and water consumption being at a premium. So those are all things to consider as you're looking at the long-term expense of what turf could be over the life of that turf. I typically your warranty, just so you guys know, is 8 years. We're seeing you should get about 12 years out of your turf if you take care of it. We tell people to start planning replacement at about year 10, just to be safe if you're looking at budgetary numbers and and that cost is typically 60% of the initial cost. So you already have your pipes, you already have your drainage, you already have your rock. You're basically just coming back in with carpet. So you have about a 40% less cost when you're going in. Obviously on the field alone, you would have savings on the track that would be already rebuilt. You're not building bleachers again. So kind of that initial larger sum when you're replacing the turf, you're replacing the track, that's going to be drastically less. And that's really where the value begins to come in for a school district around year 10, 11, 12, where they're seeing that flip of maintenance and cost and those types of things flip to where the budgetary numbers make a lot of sense outside of playability, outside of safety, outside of usability. So option B is currently where the track is removing that track completely, building a bleacher system that would have a concession stands, locker rooms, all those amenities inside of it. And then the 8-lane track, lights, everything else. So you can kind of see that the difference. The parking lot would be an addition That's not currently an option A. Again, the biggest price difference is going to be your locker room building, your parking lot, and the demolition of the old track building completely, and building completely new. So again, high level gives you a good idea as you guys plan, kind of strategically plan, work through this. Coach and I are both available at any point. If you guys have any questions for us, happy to come back, visit with any groups that you guys might have. But this is typically how it starts. It typically starts, hey, we got some people have expressed interest, or we have, we're renting, we want our own facility. We're seeing what's happening in other communities. We're trying to recruit families in. I will say that the studies that have come out, school facilities are a huge driver for people moving into communities and athletics. We all saw through COVID, athletics are not going anywhere. In fact, the power of sports is even stronger than ever, and the drive that has for the benefits for the students. And of course, you have to obviously weigh that against the investment. And but we're here just to help with any of those questions. So.
Is there a little bit of an a la carte nature to this? Like if we said, hey, look, we just want to do lights for right now, come back and do stuff later on.
Yep. Yeah, we kind of broke that out for you in some of these areas. So, but we could take out, if you guys wanted to, like I said, a la carte it, do this now, wait and do this here, we can do that there. We definitely can work with you guys on any of those pricing.
Relocation of bleachers means moving them across where we would keep the old bleachers we have, or they're going up?
Well, yeah, on the west side, those bleachers would stay for the visitor side, but we would build bleachers for the new homes.
So our capacity is 2,000 plus whatever.
Well, yes, and I talked with Paul about that, and I checked with Eudora to see what their capacity was, and their home seats about 12 to 1,400, and their visitor seats about 500.
Okay.
And just in the same frame, not to make a pun, but angle frame versus beam construction. Like, what is Eudora's? Just because I'm familiar with theirs.
I believe it's angle frame.
Okay. The benefits of it's basically the space you have underneath to build under. So the different systems of bleachers allow you to build locker rooms underneath, allow you to build restrooms. Other bleacher systems don't allow that.
So like Spring Hill, then, if they're familiar with theirs, I guess would be not the beam construction, because I think they
I don't know what Spring Hill has.
Yeah.
We have a whole bunch of facilities that we built that we can get you guys more information on. Again, for this exercise, we just kind of kept it a lot higher than that.
You said it's an 8-year warranty?
Correct. So on average, we do have a couple of products that are a 10-year warranty, but 95% of all your turf systems are going to come with an 8-year warranty.
What's the approximate maintenance costs with that?
Sure.
Yearly?
So we actually, if you partnered with Mammoth, we donate that to Kansas communities that we do projects with. So we would be donating that as part of our partnership with you guys. If you were to pay for it, it's usually about $4,500 a year is what professional maintenance is when we send out our crews with our I call it our big Zamboni machine. And it's the high level where you're checking your infill levels, you're checking your seams, you're basically proactively checking for any issues that could be arising and fixing them before they begin. But I would say $4,500 is kind of that market level cost of annual maintenance for a company like ours to do it.
What's the time frame from like a construction beginning, like from saying, yeah, let's do something, to I'm sitting in the stands watching a football game?
Sure. Obviously, that'll depend on which one you go.
Right.
Great example, it's just Marysville. So Marysville, we started 2 weeks ago, and we'll have it done in time for the first football game. So that's a new track. That's tearing out their track, a new track, new field, lights. But does not have anything doing with bleachers, but that gives you a pretty good kind of estimate. Usually 8 weeks is kind of a good time frame. Again, there's some determining factors around that, such as permitting. Every city and county is a little bit differently on how long that takes, design, some of those types of things. But when we get the green light, when we get our machinery in the ground, what we call a full conversion or a new build on the turf and the tracks, you're looking at about 8 weeks. We do have some financing partners that a number of our schools have taken advantage of. They've been very, very aggressive, especially through K through 12s. We're seeing about the 3 to 3.5%. And the ability to take that out up to 10 years without the first payment due for a year. And so it's allowed schools to keep some of the capital outlay dollars in their back pocket and go ahead and just finance it. And it's seemed to work out really, really well for them. A lot of schools have had the money, and then they were presented with the financing options. They chose just to finance because of keeping that money in the account, and we're able to look at the benefits of that financing. That's we connect you with our partners on that. We don't run the financing, but it has been a method that a number of our school partners have used to get facilities done, either ahead of schedule, maybe before they had it, outside of a bond, or those types of things too.
Other questions?
And you get the track in purple.
You can get the track in whatever color you want. It just costs a little bit more if you have a color. I think it's about $30,000 more if you do, and it's all based on square footage. So you can have whatever color. We do have some recommendations on certain colors that there's a lot of technology, so you don't see fading like you used to. But there are some colors that do fade a little bit more. The others still that we kind of will just, again, it's an education process, and we can still do it if somebody really wants to. But we try to help. Hey, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. It's going to look better longer if you went this color over that. So, thank you guys all for your time. Again, if you have any questions, we'll make sure that our contact information is sent around. And thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you. Anything else on that for now? Is everybody good just to peruse and consider?
I love my business cards, a whole stack of them.
Thank you. All right, public comment policy. So I read the public comment policy at the beginning, and we do that periodically. This is the same policy, just for a little recap. It's the same policy that has been in place way before. I'm not sure how long this same policy was in place. I would defer to Andy on that, but it was the same policy that was there when I first joined the board 5 years ago. And the only change that we've ever made to it was last year when we weren't sure about meeting guidelines and how that was going to work. Attended a KASB training with one of their legal advisors, and they suggested for best practices that if different counties have limitations on, gathering, they might add electronic public policy or public comment. So about a year and a half, it's a little bit of a blur at this point, but that has been the only change that we've ever made to the policy. And just as a refresh, when we added that, it was to make sure that, if we could only have 8 of us here, that no one from the public would be disenfranchised from offering public comment. And we also said that, we didn't know if we would do it that way forever. We would reevaluate when things normalized. Certainly, we didn't want to revisit that before the end of the school year, because once people are used to it, didn't want to, touch any of that until it was summer. Things had normalized. And so basically what we need to look at with that, along with Mr. Dorothy's recommendation and any board discussion, is if the board wants to keep it, do away with it, what your thoughts are on that piece of it. So that's what's before us on that.
Well, I'll start off and say I think that your recommendation is to eliminate the electronic. I agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's nice. It was a good way for people to be able to comment in the situation that we were in. I do like a little bit of the onus that's put on people to have to come to a meeting and talk rather than feel a little bit of that separation. I think that it shows a little bit more, dedication to be able to get up. want to get up and talk, but a little more dedication to their, what they have to say. It's harder to do than to type it. And I think that's a good measure of someone's, you know.
Just to add on to that, it seems like because it was written and we were kind of tasked with having to read every single one, it went against our policy of being redundant, because oftentimes it was very redundant. It was the same message over and over again. So I think that I agree with your point, Phil, just that being here, and also it reduces redundancy.
This is me turning off my mic because Phil's.
I agree with taking it, with changing it so we don't have it, because I get nervous that sometimes reading won't relay the message the way the person would like it to be relayed, whether it be in tone, or they might write it not meaning something, or sometimes they put a name in that shouldn't be read. So I think that people who might not want to come, they do have the opportunity to write us personally, so they can be heard. It just isn't read to everyone. So I'm in favor of not having it in there.
Anybody else?
Well, I will say I've been uncomfortable reading because there are times that.
And you do a fabulous job.
Someone has, no, I know exactly
Yeah.
what you mean, but if that's not the way they're saying it, and voice inflection, all that matters. And sometimes people have gone into detail about things about their own child, and are, you know, if a parent gets up and speaks about their own kid, that's fine. Speaking about other people's kids is really outside of our rules, as they've been for many years. So when I've been reading somebody else's electronic public comment, I have omitted that, taking a risk, and gotten in touch with them later to explain why I did it, because I didn't, you know, so that's uncomfortable, because I want to respect the intent with which they've written, but I also don't want to violate other parts of our policy too, about student confidentiality, and all of our students are entitled to that. So yeah.
With that, if we do close that email account down, is there a way we can make an auto-generated message that goes back to somebody? Should they send a message thinking that they're responding to us, like to bounce back and say, this is now an account that's closed? Or I don't know how that technically works, but I wouldn't want somebody to send an email and think we're reading it when we're not.
Set that up. It'd be as simple as the vacation responded.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. A message back to them that whenever that this is no longer.
This is now closed. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm great with that.
Okay. So I think what we did is we did a motion when we added electronic public comment, because we weren't really required to, but we did that so that it would be board on the record doing it. So if we want to end it, I think we should have a motion saying board on the record. Same way we started it, we want to end it, we'll do it as a motion. Unless anybody has anything else they'd like to discuss with that.
And what I want to say is like, I will feel that local scan companies that are more scans than on one account.
I move that we amend the public comment. Would it be that we amend the public comment rule to not include the ability to have electronic comments?
I'll second.
That's not in first.
Lose.
Carrie has moved and Chris has seconded that we amend the public participation guidelines to now no longer include electronic public comment only. And that the board would like some sort of autoresponder message, you know, so that people know how to be redirected and not feel ignored, right? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. And with public comment policy, the only other thing I would add to that, just because it came up in public comment at the last meeting, It would have been inappropriate for me to say anything about it at the time because we're not supposed to talk at the time, but we have it on the agenda here. I want to make sure that the board is fully aware of all of your procedural options. At any time, it lays out what we can and can't do with public comment. And I think we're all really committed to protecting that, which is awesome. But if something comes up in public comment, and your president is accused of nefarious dealings, I really want this board to know that at any time, all you have to do, if you agree with an accusation that is brought forward during public comment, since we do not have the ability to respond, all you have to do, if you agree with that accusation, is simply say, I move that we remove the president. It's really that simple. And I want to be really transparent about that and not run away from that. I'm not signaling that I'm looking to step down because I was not guilty of the things that I was accused of at the last meeting. But we are a board, we are a team. And so procedurally, it's really important that I just say to you, if that's where y'all are at, all you have to do is make a motion, okay? And especially for the new people, you need to know that is your right as board members. So that's it. All right, moving on to item number 3. Sorry. Pardon.
Where are the guidelines for public comment for the public?
On our website, thank you. Right under, it's on USD 348, and then if you go down underneath the board, it's one of the tabs or in the listing at the bottom of the page says agendas, policies, and minutes. I think it's agendas, minutes, policies, maybe in that order. Okay. And then you click on that and it shows the policy and there's a PDF attachment that states what I just read.
Okay,
yeah,
I'll look at it too, but I just want to be, I don't know, careful, clear, whatever, that it's very, it includes things like relevance. It includes things like professional judgment when this public comment is being made. Does it include things like that? Like,
yes. And it says avoid redundancy, but I mean, we've never censored that. And I don't know that there's any interest in doing that. I certainly don't. That's why I've never, we have a 5-minute time limit and districts do this differently. The law only, the law, what it says about public comment or what's required to have an open meeting, we've always been very open about that. And I don't think anybody has any appetite for changing that. It's important to listen to people. It's important for people to have the right to speak. And it's probably particularly important right now to listen to people when you don't understand where something maybe is even coming from. That's when it's even most important to listen. But if there are there's no one person that's above anybody else on here. So as we adopt our procedures, it's just important to know what our options are and that no one vote counts for more than anything else. And the good news is, guys, is that, just for the record, all of our motions for the last year and a half have been 7-0 except for 3. And 2 of those had to do with one-day things with graduation. And one of those had to do with a little bit of a disagreement about sports and which is a voluntary activity with county gating. Other than that, we've whittled everything down and discussed back and forth to a place where this group could do 7-0. So it's just important to me after all of that you guys know that if you feel like that I am not carrying out or executing the will of this board, despite the fact that our votes have been by our majority 7-0, all you have to do is make a motion and replace. That's it. Other than that, we follow what we've got, but electronic public comment is gone. So with that, unless anybody has anything to add, I'll move on to item number 3, which was amended at the beginning. That has to do with Mr. McClure from the Rec Commission but asked us if we would amend the agenda because they need these approvals done. This is to appoint Dustin Ward and Chad Dick as the 2 USC 348 Rec Commission board representatives. And so if everyone's comfortable with an approval of those 2, we would need a motion for that, please.
So I motion that we approve Dustin Ward and Chad Dick for the Baldwin Recreation. Was it Baldwin City Rec?
You got it. That works. Is there a second?
Second.
Bill's moved and Carrie has seconded that we approve the designation of Dustin Ward and Chad Dick for the Baldwin City Recreation Commission appointees or representatives to the board. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, board member input, co-op report.
Chickens.
No, exciting stuff. Go ahead.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. Did it work this time? Okay. Okay.
Can we do that one?
Okay. Just get rid of it. Just throw it away. Shout out to Drew for attempting to fix my mic today. It's, I appreciate the help. Maybe 3 times. All right. So co-op report. There are quite a few in transition updates for you guys. There's the financial aspect. Things have been relatively good news when it comes to special education funding last month or so here. So it looks like our assessment increases will be less than they had been anticipated as previously. So I think at one point we talked about there being a 8-9% raise. It's now looking more like a 2% raise in assessments, which I don't know exactly what dollar amount that translates to at this point for the district, but it's a lot better than 8%. I'll put it that way. But and the majority of that's coming from federal funds coming in or the state allocating some of the ESSERS funds directly to special education departments and interlocals and that type of thing. In addition to that, we had a great discussion, with the Wellsville and Eudora representatives on that board as well at our last meeting, which was just last week. Just last week, about also kind of having a similar conversation about the vision and mission of the co-op. It was nice seeing the data from Janet today because it really the struggles you're seeing with our kids in Baldwin is very similar to what we're seeing in Eudora and Wellsville as well. And so the co-op wants to be a central part of those adjustments to helping support those kids as needed there, and not necessarily going all the way through full special education identification and services, but having a more graduated response to that and having more trauma responsive practices and more support towards those tier 1 and tier 2 interventions and supports within that as well. So again, those are early conversations. We may actually pull in Greenbush as well to help navigate those conversations as well. But I want you guys all to be aware that the co-op really intends to becoming a more comprehensive organization to better serve the districts that we serve over time here too. But again, it's going to take time and a lot of effort to get there. But in addition to that, Susan, any other thoughts? Okay, I think that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Here, you can just keep that. I'm going to try it.
I think you got magic hands, huh?
Okay. So I'm sorry. I almost wanted to pretend like it didn't work. Sorry.
You just show it off. Okay. All right. I get it, Kelly.
I'm sorry, Chris. Okay, well, thank you for the update. It is now I do have a question though. That 8% down to more of a 2%-ish. That's because it's going in directly from ESSER funds, right? Is that some of or in the anticipated?
The answer is a bit complicated.
Okay.
So the way Kansas allocates the money for special education is like a big pizza. Okay?
Yes.
Because we had fewer slices of the pizza taken out this year because we had far fewer paras taking a piece out of the pie. That means that those chunks that were left allocated in a larger percentage for each staff person we did have. So KSD had originally budgeted like $28,000 in reimbursement for a special education teacher. Because we had so few paras across the state this year, that number got ratcheted up to I think 30,700 or something. So quite a bit higher than it had been previously. Now, Dan Ray and I had been asking these questions back in December and January, but nobody could give us a solid answer for this one, which is why we had to project really high for that.
I remember, and that's why I was asking that because, okay.
So that's the main driver for that reduction there. But that pattern may not hold in future years. It just happens to be this was one of those quirky years, another quirk of the pandemic here, where we had just fewer personnel that were drawing out of that big pizza pie.
Okay.
And so we got a bigger piece for our staff members this year.
Okay.
But it's still the same amount of money. It's just
right.
It's just divided. We'd have less than salaries this year. So
okay.
say that's a long answer to your question, but
No,
it's
that
really
that helps because
complicated.
I do remember you guys talking about that and yeah, thank you. Does anybody else have questions about that?
Did I answer that right? Okay. It's complicated.
Okay, miscellaneous, anyone have anything for miscellaneous? Okay. Superintendent's report.
I have one thing that I felt like I should bring up tonight. I want to remind board members and public that there is a policy, board policy, it's been there for longer than I've been superintendent. That's policy IF. It has to do with instruction and materials and how those are selected. It also has a process in there that if someone wants to challenge material or curriculum that we have in the district, there is a process that's all written now. I would highly suggest board members look at policy IF. Because it spells out exactly when patrons have concerns about policy, how they can go about addressing that if they want to. So I wanted to bring that out tonight. I've been going through it just to check all the policies and the procedures on that policy, but it's been a long time. Back, as I said, maybe before, actually, Andy might have been involved in that. Way back when, I think he might have been.
Things get hazy.
Yeah. When that policy was made, but that policy's been in there for a long time. It has been used a couple times. Most certainly, over the years, we most certainly have had different people that felt like certain parts of our curriculum not the way they'd like them to be. And most certainly, about every single year, we have somebody that questions the sex education part of our curriculum. That's another thing. We have somebody comes in and wants to review that and look at it. So that's typical. Anyway, just want to bring that up at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Dorothy. All right, we have, let me get that piece of paper out. We do need to have a motion for executive session.
Like, I feel like we left a little thing undone. So just
5. Okay. I just need to pull up that piece of paper. I move we enter into executive session with Cindy Frigg and Mr. Dorothy to discuss negotiations for the 21-22 school year pursuant to the exception under coma, excuse me, the exception under coma relating to the discussion of non-elected personnel in the negotiation process, and the open meeting will resume in the PAC at 9:43.
second.
Andy has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Susie, aye. Motion carries 7-0, executive session time.
So what was the key on the microphone?
It's, you have to hold it, just hold it for a really, really long time.
calling geographic order. I move Mr. Spencer to with Mr. Dorothy to discuss the personnel report pursuant to the non-elected personnel section under COLA and the open meeting will resume in the PEC at 9:15.
Second.
All seconded, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we will call the meeting back to order. We have 2 reports up for approval underneath the personnel report prior to adjournment. We have the summer food service program report and then also the standard personnel report.
Two motions or just one? 2 separate ones?
I think we did 2 last time. I don't remember. Megan, can we do them together? I can't.
I prefer to do them together, but you did do 2 last time.
Oh, okay, well, if she prefers us to do it together, whatever Megan says. Okay.
Knock that
We can do it together.
I don't remember what they are.
I'll make a motion that we approve the personnel reports as presented.
Second.
Chris has moved and Tony has seconded that we approve the personnel reports as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Just need a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Phil has moved and Susan has seconded. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, 9:52. Thank you, Drew Ising, Director of Technology, for all the facilitating. Thanks, guys, for being here. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, board. Good night.
Oh, look at that. Megan, I never even saw my full.
Placed it so nicely.
It's all time to go in your briefcase. It's the same size.